Good day, everyone. I am Christine, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone to today's webinar, that is Expense Reimbursements 2025, Proper Record Keeping and Accounting for OBBB and Payroll Compliance. I would like to introduce our presenter for today, Mark Swerge. Mark Swerge is an employment tax specialist and has over 15 years of employment tax experience as an independent consultant and as a payroll tax auditor with the state of California. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, and welcome everybody to today's audio conference on employee expense reimbursement. This is meant to be an overview of the requirements for record keeping and accounting for employee expense reimbursements. That's reimbursements for expenses employees make on your behalf, the business. And the trap is, if you don't do it right, those payments can be taxable wages to those employees, which would make neither you, the business, or the employees happy. We'll talk about the gist of accounting for employee expense reimbursements and what makes an accountable plan. Then we'll go over per diems, which is a simplified method to reimburse employees for certain travel-related expenses. And then we'll have some general guidelines from the IRS about expense reimbursement. And we'll talk about some specific types of expense reimbursements. One big, beautiful bill extended certain provisions of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And then we'll talk about best practices for payroll managers, and then some case studies, some eye-opening case studies. So accountable plan. A reimbursement of employee business expenses made under accountable plans can be excluded from gross income and are not subject to employment taxes. And that's kind of obvious since expenses are never meant to be taxable. So 3 elements that make an accountable plan for any expense reimbursement. All right, so what does business connection evidence mean? Each element of an expenditure or use must be substantiated. That is type. So again, documentary evidence. Receipts are always good. The fixed date method and the periodic method. All right, when you give an advance for travel. All right, so I've already mentioned that as far as receipts go, electronic receipts are fine. They have been for decades. Now, if there are excess reimbursement payments, all right, now let's talk about per diems. They can be an alternative to employee statements to substantiate travel expenses. Again, this is lodging, meals, and incidentals only. So the IRS has a high-low method. Again, the General Service Administration at that URL in the yellow text on this slide, expense reimbursement rules of thumb, some specific types of expenses and the rules that apply to them, pre-employment expenses, agency fees. After 2017, you can no longer deduct moving expenses unless you're a member of the armed forces on active duty. Meals and entertainment. Let's talk about uniform allowances, and this comes from the Fair Labor Standard Act. Automobile travel. All right, personal property of the employee. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act regulated, changed in the regulations that the one big beautiful bill made permanent. Again, for moving expenses, as defined under Internal Revenue Code Section 132. Another thing the TCJA did was eliminate the business tax deduction that employers used to be allowed for the costs incurred by the employer. Best practices in terms of expense reimbursements, recording, and accounting. Questions to ask yourself. So we recommend, again, accounts payable payment require payroll sign-off. Company credit card reimbursement policies. Some things to keep in mind. The policy should not discriminate among like employees. Policies should avoid payroll and HR-related acronyms, terminology, etc. At its simplest, an expense policy should cover the following categories. Is employee-related fraud. Inflating business expenses can be found. So the last thing we will go over are 4 case studies. Case 2, Case 3, Case 4. That takes us to the end of the slide presentation. Thanks for attending. Have yourself a great weekend.
Thank you, Mark. That concludes the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now and have a great weekend.